Jacksonville opting out. What again is the benefit of that? Just
didn't the Rams do this a couple of years ago, or maybe even last year?
Yeah,
it's
Snead and McVay.
Was it both? I don't know. Maybe
I think so.
What is the?
Yeah,
I guess,
maybe.
What,
I don't know. They just feel like it's more important for them to be here. So what happens is you have the rule of the 45 rule. So each team can meet with 45 different prospects while they're here at Indianapolis. Official visits with them where they get I think maybe 15 minutes each in each interview, maybe 20, something like that. And, they can meet with them and go over whatever they want. That whole thing. We saw Kyrie Elam with the interview a few years ago that bringing out the notebook and things like that. And I guess some teams just feel that's not as beneficial for them. They'd rather just kind of do the business of football that they need to get to back at their facility and get to the pro days and get to the interviews when they bring them back, to their facilities.
I'm fully with finding the interview process, if not just overrated, completely inconsequential. I've thought that for a long time. The biases we have as people when we're listening to certain other people in interviews can really set you wrong. I just can't figure out why it would be possibly better to not even go. As long as you can afford it, and any NFL team can afford it, what am I doing? Am I playing Stratego instead? What am I doing instead? Just to be in the stadium, Sal, noticing things, talking to people, trades, and just bouncing ideas off each other. That's, for me, what's weird. I think if it were entirely up to me, I'm one of these teams, I'd go, of course, but I might not bother with the interviews, or I might make certain different choices. But I can't imagine it would come out as positive EV to just not go at all.
Yeah, I agree with you. Just knowing the way it is for us, for me, for the media, and seeing people here, I'm wondering what would they benefit by that? So Liam Cohen and James Gladstone, that's their GM. They won't be here at all, as you said. Now, I don't know if that means that their staff won't be here. I'm guessing they will. They'll get medical checkups and things like that when those things start. I don't know, though. Maybe they're not even coming. But I know they're not coming, those two particular men. And I agree with you, Mike. Knowing how this works, this is a major convention. I always say to people say, what's it like? Why do you go to the Combine? Why is it important for the NFL, for media? Well, the basic answer would be no matter what industry you're in out there, whether you sell cars or you work in maintenance or something, in housing or whatever, there's probably some sort of convention for your industry somewhere in the country every year. This is it. The Combine is it. The Combine is the convention for the NFL every year. It's where everybody bounces ideas off each other. The difference is in this particular industry, around the country, everybody's competitive, right? So you're also kind of trying to figure out what the other person's doing. You do something different, but you're also collaborating. The agents are here, guys. The agents come here. This is when everything starts to happen with free agency, and we start to learn what's going to wind up happening with certain guys and what their price tags might be, and you start to hear rumors. This is also where we get a lot of news, which is like last year. The day that we got here last year, or the day that Brandon Beane spoke, he told us right there Khalil Shakir had signed a 4-year contract extension. We didn't know that until that happened that day, and then that was the first of many dominoes. So I don't know what the benefit would be of not being here for any of that.
Well, I wonder what you might have in mind for Beane and Brady tomorrow. I mean, it hasn't been that long since Brady was introduced and both spoke. And there really hasn't been much news since then. Maybe, like you're saying, tomorrow there will be more. But what are we going to want to know from them tomorrow, in your opinion?
I think we're going to try to get some clues on how they want to attack the offseason. Now, we're not going to be able to walk out of there and go, oh, my God, they're trading 2 number ones for a wide receiver. That's not going to happen, right? Nobody's going to give you that kind of thing. But I do think that you can ask questions or at least get insight about how they want to attack the offseason just by certain clues and things that they say. And if Brandon Beane, gives you any clue on, hey, like he said, I believe he did an interview one-on-one with Josh Reed not long ago of WIVB, where he said something to the effect of, it's my job to make sure Josh isn't throwing to guys who look like you and me. Like Joe Brady wants to, throw the ball downfield more. I got to make sure he's got guys to do that. And that perks my ears up, to be honest with you, right? Okay, what does that look like? Maybe you could poke around that. We've talked about this before last time I was on with you guys that, this is a bit different this year because we're going to figure out a little bit more about the defense as we go along this offseason. it might be more about who they bring in tells us about the defense than vice versa, which is usually we know the defense, who are they bringing in? And then I think the coaching staff as well. That is a bit of news that happened while we were gone. The Bills announced their coaching staff. I believe it was like right when I left that day or around there. I don't even know if we talked about it. Like John Fox is now on staff. Okay. Like, why is that important? What is his role? And I don't expect anything earth shattering. It's going to be, hey, he's an experienced kind of guy. But we could look through the coaching staff and try to figure out some things that they did, why they kept certain guys, why they didn't keep guys. They only kept 2 guys on the defensive side, Joe Dana, Jason Rebrovich. But I think more than anything, it's about clues of how they want to attack the offseason and what they feel about certain guys. If you ask them about Connor McGovern and you get an answer of, hey, we're going to try and do everything we can to keep Connor McGovern, that might be a little different than, Connor's earned the right to become a free agent. We can't keep everybody, right? I don't know. Those two answers are very different.
Well, I'm very tuned into that, Sal, because I think it'll be really telling what they decide to do there. They did draft Cedric Van Pran Granger, this was his second full season. Have I got that right? So he's been sort of, he's been on the job training, right? I mean, he's here. He's been kept on the roster, and I assume that was to be grooming him. I mean, certainly there's a backup role to be fulfilled there, but I think a real clue to me about, the drafting they've done, the developing they've done will come in, are they comfortable? The answer to the question of are they comfortable just plugging and playing, a mid-round player from 2 drafts ago in place of someone who played at a pretty high level for them? Because there's no way. I mean, maybe they lose both of those guys. Edwards, the guy next to McGovern, is also a free agent. But maybe you can find your way to keep one of them. Maybe it depends on what the market is for each guy. But you should have guys in the pipeline ready to step in that you drafted a few years ago. I think that's not asking too much.
And the Bills have pretty much operated like that under this regime, where they have really, the last, I'd say 4 years or so, really concentrated on developing some offensive linemen to be able to step in. Spencer Brown comes to mind, where he's been able to do that. And even in Alec Anderson in certain roles, where he's played a much more prominent role, obviously, over the last several years. I think it's going to be tough for them. More than anything, I think this is a situation where they'd probably really like to keep a guy like Connor McGovern. I just don't think they can. They don't have the money. The money they're going to have to spend on the defensive side, the resources to kind of overhaul that side, what Jim Leonard's going to want to do, the fact that they still have Josh Allen, the fact that they still scored as many points as they did last year, and, they feel that they can have an elite offense again, maybe with a couple tweaks. And if they're going to spend money on offense, it's probably going to be at wide receiver. I just don't see how they can pay him. So, then you turn to what do we have? Well, we've had this guy for 2 years. So if Aaron Kromer and Austin Gunn and everybody around him did their job, he should be ready to step in. And if he's not, then maybe you have to find somebody else like an Alec Anderson, or go out there, maybe somebody in between that, where like an Edwards McGovern level or Alec Anderson's level. Anderson only signed a $3 million deal. I say only because that actually, guys, would have been about what they would have paid him, I think, for his restricted free agent tender. They're really not giving him anything more than that. So you're saving money there, and you're probably going to have to do the same in some way at center, and that's probably Van Pran Granger, who's on his 3rd year of his rookie deal.
Sal Capaccio in Indianapolis, Mike Schopp and the Bulldog here. Sal says Joe Brady says he doesn't want Josh Allen throwing to receivers that look like you and me, as you put it, if that were to happen, and specifically it were us. Bulldog, your classic big-bodied X, Mike Evans. Think Mike Evans.
Yep.
I think Sal's our burner. Shaheed. And I'll be your late-stage Adam Thielen, just working out of the slot, trying to manipulate people and get open.
I can climb the ladder.
So
I mean, I literally need a ladder if they will allow that.
There has to be a ladder.
I'm going to carry a ladder with me, so it's going to slow down my route running. But you put that ball up high, I'm going to scurry up that ladder and get it.
So there's that.
I mean, look what Cooper Kupp did, Mike, for, Seattle.
I didn't want to give myself too much credit. I didn't want to give myself.
Okay, there you go.
Well, Sal, you mentioned, you used the word overhaul when talking about the defense, as part of filling out the point about the guard and the center both being unrestricted free agents, and, the amount of money is going to get pretty thin, maybe pretty fast. How many players, have you really thought about, how many starting caliber players or even rotational players do you think they are going to need between, the defensive line, the linebacking core, and the secondary? It seems like there are a lot of holes there.
I could give you at least one from each level, maybe two from each level, to be honest with you. And, now you're starting to add up. You go two to each level, that's half the defense that turns over, right? So, I mean, when I say one from each level, people go, well, that's not many. Well, think about it. I mean, you only start 11 guys.
6 guys.
That's right. I mean, think about it for a second. So, at defensive end, after the contract they handed to Greg Rousseau last year and the fact that they drafted him and developed him and the same, general managers here, I can't imagine that, they're doing anything different with him. I think you do have to think about a guy like A.J. Epinesa, though. He's going to be a free agent. How much money is he going to get? Where would he fit in the new defense if you want to bring him back? You might need to get younger there. Defensive tackle is really interesting to me. So they did bring back Fedarian Mathis today, and I think Fedarian Mathis can fit into this defense. I think he's a bigger body. The way that he moved last year, he actually impressed me in some of the games that he played. That might be a guy where it feels to me like you get this news today that he signed a 1 year deal. He was going to be an unrestricted free agent. Feels to me like that's a guy Jim Leonard probably walked in the office and said, hey, I will like this guy. I watch him on tape. Go re-sign him for me. Like, give me that guy. That's fine. So they did that with him. Ed Oliver's an interesting guy because I think he can fit in this defense, and it's not your traditional 3-4 nose tackle, but he has flexibility. He's a penetrator. From there, though, Bulldog, I'll go to, for example, a guy you brought up a lot last year. What's the future of Dwayne Carter, right?
Yeah.
What's the future of Daquan Jones? Probably not going to fit in this defense at his age where he is. But they got to roll with Deion Walker and TJ Sanders. Why wouldn't they? But they're in their second year. And then I go to the second level. I mean, Matt Milano's contract is voiding, $11 million cap hit, so it looks like that's going to be something he's not going to be on the team. Terrell Bernard's going to be a linebacker, but the question is what position is he playing? He's going to have to be, an inside backer, I'm saying, but that's a different position for him, so to speak, right? He's not a 4-3 guy. What about Dorian Williams? You could save money moving on from Dorian Williams, but does this team like Dorian Williams enough to, keep him on the roster and have him play next to Terrell Bernard? Special teams making, fourth year of a rookie contract isn't a lot of money. That's interesting because the only other guys are Joe Andreessen, Keontae Jenkins, Jimmy Charlo, and Balen Spector as a restricted free agent. And then you get to Taron Johnson. There's been a lot of debate about him. What exactly is the plan for nickel? And if you do have a plan for nickel, is he the guy you entrust because he didn't have quite the year last year? And look at his, look at his age and things like that. And then outside of that, hey, I could make a serious argument they could bring Tre'Davious White and should bring him back.
Yeah.
But what does that look like with Max Harrison as well? And then, of course, we all know they're going to need a starting safety next to Cole Bishop.
Taron Johnson will be 30 in July. A few minutes left with
go ahead.
Sal Capaccio.
Sorry, I just wanted to. So you think Rapp is a goner? Because I think the money, saving the money.
Oh,
so
yeah.
that's why you say it that strongly. They're going to need a starting safety. I agree with you, but they do still have Rapp here.
You're right. On paper right now, Taylor Rapp would be the penciled-in starter, I guess. But I believe they will move on from him just by what the numbers are. Put it this way, if they don't move on from Taylor Rapp, I'm wondering, wow, what are you going to get from him, and why would you pay him that money? You better really have confidence in him, and it just feels like they probably wouldn't. Now, who knows? Sean McDermott was the coach. He's not anymore. Was that more of a Sean thing than, who's in charge now? And all those things could matter here. But I just feel Jim Leonard, that's the position he played, right? We all know that. He came in and said he loves Cole Bishop's game. That's the kind of safety he wanted to play. I think they want a guy that's more like Cole Bishop to be able to be pairing with him.
Well, Sal, we don't have, it seems, we'll see what kind of league news this week brings, but the last couple of years, it's been the tush push, it's been the overtime rules, it's been kickoffs. There's been meaty subjects, rules-wise, to sink your teeth into, and everything I've read in the last week or so seems to indicate that there is not that much on the table this year.
Correct. Except for some tweaking, maybe. Well, here's what we're going to find out. What does it look like with the aiding the runner discussion? So there's no tush push per se, but maybe that falls under the aiding the runner. That is going to be something discussed. Now, aiding the runner is, remember, years ago there was an aiding the runner penalty, which this is part of the reason I don't like the tush push. I grew up watching football thinking you can't push guys from behind. It's just not something you do in football. Why would you be allowed to do that? So to me, that was always aiding the runner. Well, they got rid of that back in the early 2000s because it's tough to adjudicate, and I totally get that. Well, instead of having that debate this year, it's Okay, what about an offensive lineman in the middle of a pile that just starts shoving his guy forward? What about pulling your guy forward? That's always a weird one to me. You pull the guy forward in the end zone, that's allowed. That's aiding the runner. So again, I understand the argument against it is that's another thing for referees to look at. But I think those things can be kind of seen, right? If you don't see him actually grab him and pull him, you can't, call the play dead or call a penalty or whatever. Now that's one. The other one is, and I don't know how this is going to look either, guys. Whatever happened with that really weird Rams-Seahawks play at the end of the game at night and that 2-point conversion that it went off someone's helmet, went backward, and the Rams are proposing a rule to fix that, basically. I just have no idea what the rule is.
Are they really?
Yes.
It's a huge play.
Huge play in the season.
I shouldn't say they're proposing a rule, Mike. We don't know that yet, but they're discussing it in a manner in which it could come out as a rules proposal, I guess. And then there will be alignment issues with the kickoff. So those are just kind of safety things after studying it for a couple of years. But it doesn't seem like there's any real big sweeping changes there.
You got to give them, I think, points for the kickoff changes, really. I mean, they brought the play back.
It worked. I didn't think it would, but it really has.
I don't like that you can't have onside kicks anymore unless you tell the other team you're doing it. But, there's some price to pay always. And, look, you don't even need the officials to be able to see these aiding the runner plays because there's people watching who can make the calls. So you don't have to even have the officials see. As long as it's visible on TV, that should be good enough. Didn't I see something today, or did you, about a second replay officials calling penalties? Something to that effect, like expanding challenging plays.
I didn't see anything today, but I had seen something earlier in the offseason already about whether they were going to expand the breadth of that, because the way it is, the way they say it now on games, there are examples of them not doing this, but that they can instruct the officials to pick up a flag when there wasn't a foul.
Correct.
And it's obvious, but they can't say you missed a face mask, you missed somebody hit the quarterback in the head or whatever it is. You can't then throw a flag with the assist of the sky ref. And I think that they were discussing changing that. And they probably should, because they've already done it a couple of times where, I can remember, Joe Buck complained, like, I thought they couldn't do this, but they did it because they thought they needed to. So it's maybe been at the discretion. I don't know. Maybe that's something that could get some discussion.
Yeah, it could. The other thing I'll be watching for this week is, we already alluded to about like talking with people, but there's big names that have to have discussions here and be decided on. Tua is a big one. What happens with him, right? But there's other names around the league that start to percolate. And then Max Crosby and Trey Hendrickson. So, those are the names and the kind of cool things that you start to hear this week and figure out where things are going.
Kyler Murray is already one that there's talk about him today. Moving on.
Malik Willis is like apparently the quarterback this year, right? That people want, and I get it. Like, what's the free agent pool look like? It's not that strong, and I totally understand. He's a guy that's looked pretty good at times when he's gone in. So we'll see where he goes. And as you guys, when we talked about this last week, like, I do think the Dolphins would be very interested in him, given the Packers connection with their new coach. But I heard today that the Cardinals would be interested in him as well if they move on from Murray.
Free agency opens March 9th. That might seem like a ways off. It's 2 weeks from today is all.
Yes. That is what we reluctantly call the legal tampering period. The actual date is March 11th.
Okay.
But yeah, that's when they can start to talk to players.